Don't try to sneak into your room like that. I know what you've got behind your back. Records. More new records.
So, if you've been following my exploits since January of this year, you know I've done a lot of traveling. I've been all over the world. I've been to Hong Kong and Tokyo and Bangkok and the UK twice, once to interview Gerald Scarfe and then to go to SME and then to go to Air Studios and interview Phil Brown at his cottage and also go to Riga. I've done a lot of stuff, but there's one thing I haven't talked about this year. And it's probably the coolest thing that happened this year, and that is in February, I got a call from the lead lawyer in the case of Quincy Jones versus the estate of Michael Jackson. And this guy called me in February and he said, now he's from Dallas, Texas, and I'm going to imitate him, and I hope if he sees this, he's not insulted, okay? He said, Michael, I've been reading your stuff for 30 years, and I've come to trust what you say, and I am representing Quincy Jones in the case of Quincy Jones versus the estate of Michael Jackson, and I can't think of anyone I would rather have as an expert witness in this case than you. Can you do it? He gave me the dates, and it was the same week as the Munich show, and I said, I can't do it. I got the Munich show. And he said, I'm so disappointed. If you can think of anybody who could fill in for you, I don't think there is anybody, but if there is, let me know. So I went upstairs and told my wife, and she said, are you crazy? You do that. That sounds so cool. Do that and just don't go to Munich this year. There'll be Munich next year. And then I called my boss, and he said the same thing. So I called him back, and I said, I'll do it. So I happened to be going out to L.A. anyway to do a studio tour of LA, which you might have seen on the YouTube channel. And the lawyers wanted to meet with me to see whether they wanted to work with me, because, who knows? So I sat down with them at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, and we talked for a while, and they liked what they heard. I sent my resume in, which had to go to the judge, and the judge had to okay it, and he did. So I was on. So the case with me, obviously I dropped out of law school. I'm not a lawyer. So they brought me on board to talk about the quality of the mixes, the remixes that were done without Quincy Jones being involved, and Quincy Jones's contract with Michael Jackson and then with the estate of Michael Jackson says that he is entitled to the right of first refusal for any remix or any use of the masters, which are owned by Michael Jackson. And also, he gets royalties every time they're used. So this was basically a royalty dispute, but I was brought on board to talk about whether there's such a thing as a difference between a mix and a remix, the quality of what was done in the remixes, and also how it helped or hindered Quincy Jones's reputation. And, when I took this on, I told them, I said, I can only be honest. So if you send me all this material and it's great, I can't do it. I can't get up there and say what I don't believe, because that's not who I am. And they said, fine. So they sent me the Bad 25 reissue. They sent me This Is It, which was the movie that was done about Michael Jackson. And they sent me Immortal, which was one of the Cirque du Soleil shows. And I was going to go see the other Cirque du Soleil show and give them my opinion. So first I listened to Bad 25. So I have the original Bad, this one. And this was... It's a Mitsubishi X800 recording and a Mitsubishi X80 mixdown, and Bernie Grundman mastered it. And I listened to it. I haven't heard it in a long time, and I certainly haven't heard it on this system. And it's a fantastic sounding recording. And Bruce Swedien, who's the engineer, is obviously a fantastic engineer who learned under Bill Putnam. And the recording, it's three-dimensional. No wonder Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad were used in hi-fi stores all over the place to demonstrate hi-fi. So I play Bad, and it's three-dimensional and amazing. And then I put on the CD of Bad 25, and it's horrible. It has been crushed to death. I mean, so crushed that you can hear the compressor pumping, taking this wonderful three-dimensional record and killing it. Why did they do that? Because they're idiots. Somebody is an idiot. I don't care. I don't think it's the mastering engineer. I think it's somebody at the label probably said, the kids like it really loud, so make it really loud. I don't know what happened. Whatever happened, it was terrible. I called them right up and I said, I'm in on this case, if just for that. So I had to go get deposed. So after I listened to all of the material they sent me, I had to fly to LA and get deposed and sit in an office at Century Century Plaza. If you know the Yes album, going for the one with those two big towers, that's where I had to go. So I spent an entire day from morning till night being deposed. So they had the microphone on me, they had a camera on me, I was under oath, and I had to give them everything I was going to do at the actual trial, because you have to tell them what you're going to do. It's kind of a discovery process. So at the beginning, the defense attorney says to me, she says, Mr. Fremer, they try to chill me like they chill a football kicker, you know. Mr. Fremer, you know, there's a camera watching you, and it's going to be recording this whole thing. Are you comfortable with the camera on you? And I looked into the camera, and I went, I love the camera, and the camera loves me. And then I'm under oath, and the first question was, so Mr. Fremer, this is not like a normal conversation. This is, I'm going to ask a question, and you are not to answer the question until I finish asking it, so the stenographer can get it all down, and we don't talk over each other. Is that understood? And I said, so this is not like marriage? And my attorney kicked me under the table. Anyway, I got deposed. I said everything I had to say. And then the trial took place in July. It wasn't in May, so I was able to go to Munich. So here's the plot I hatched. I said, we're going to bring a high-end audio system into the courtroom, and I'm going to teach the jury all of the language that I use to review records and hi-fi equipment. And then we're going to play them the original bad, not the record. We'll play them the original CD, because as I learned later, the original CD had all the dynamics on it. It was a tremendous CD for dynamics. And as they reissued bad, they crushed it, they crushed it, they crushed it. Each time it got crushed more until the bad 25 was totally crushed. And then it had some remixes with Pitbull. What Pitbull has to do with Michael Jackson, I don't understand. I thought that was a terrible choice. I mean, Pitbull's videos are kind of like very salacious, and they're like bad beer commercials. So all this was in my mind, and I was going to do this. But the important thing was getting a good hi-fi system into the courtroom and teaching the jury all of the language, and then playing for them the original bad with all the dynamics and all the three-dimensionality, and then this horrible crushed version. So I got my friend Meyer at Audio Salon in Santa Monica involved, and they brought into the courtroom a pair of Wilson Sabrinas, a Devialet amplifier, and a computer to play the files. And so a week before the trial, I had to fly to LA and spend the week there rehearsing and being ready for when they wanted me to be there. So I get a call, I go in and spent an entire day rehearsing. So first, my lawyer says, so Mr. Fremer, what are your qualifications? So and I give him my qualifications, what I've done, and then I go into this whole routine. And after about 3/4 of a day of doing it, we thought we had it locked. So then about 9 o'clock at night, they call in the expert witness expert. So this is a guy who's an expert witness on expert witnesses. And they call in the team psychologist. And they ask me to do this one more time. So we do it one more time. And they're both busy scribbling, writing a piece of paper. When it's done, the expert witness expert turns to me and he goes, obviously, Mr. Fremer, you're very passionate about this subject, and that's something we cannot teach an expert witness. You have that in spades, but you must slow down. You're going way too fast, and I don't think the jury is going to be able to follow all of that. I said, okay, I'll slow down. Not easy for me, but I'll do it. Then the psychologist says, well, Mr. Fremer, first of all, you must not fold your arms. You have to open your body to the jury. Otherwise, you look like you're closed in and you're tense. So open your body to the jury. And when you talk to the jury, you're going to talk to your attorney, but then you're going to turn and talk to the jury because they're going to be over there. I didn't see the courtroom. I wasn't able to see the courtroom until I walked in to be put on the stand to testify, which is kind of creepy because you don't know what you're going to be seeing. And I'd never testified as an expert witness, okay? So everything about this was going to be, really kind of tense. So he said, and by the way, we're not going to play the music. And I said, what? He said, we can't take a chance that the jury is mostly young girls. They're girls, young women in their 20s. Can't take a chance that they will not hear what you're trying to make them hear. And while I'm going through this rehearsal, I got to tell you this, I'm going through rehearsal, And when I talk about sound staging, I said sound staging and imaging. So like if I'm playing a record of a string quartet, there's an image of 4 guys on a stage sitting, like you can see them, 1, 2, 3, 4 playing. He goes, no, wait, you can't say that. I said, why? He said, because you don't really mean that. You don't really see 4 guys. I said, no, you do. You actually, if it's a good system properly set up, you see very precise and concrete images of each guy on the stage. Well, don't say that because it's too creepy and I don't believe it. I said, okay, I won't say it. So he says, we cannot play the music. I don't think they're going to hear it. And I'm thinking, I'm getting very well paid for this, really well paid. That's their choice. It's a big mistake. So just then, the guy that hired me walks in the room. He goes, how's everything going in here? And the psychologist goes, Mike, his name is Mike too, we're not going to play the music. I don't think these young people are going to hear if they don't hear it, it's going to be very bad for the case. So the guy that hires me turns to me, he goes, Michael, what do you think? I've been reading Michael for 30 years, and I've come to trust when he says something, I find it's the truth. So Michael, what do you think? And I said, Mike, I think they're going to hear it. He says, well, if he thinks they're going to hear it, we're going to go for it. And I'm going, yes, this is like a scene out of a movie. Yes. And the psychologist is going, not a good idea. And this Mike is going, we're going to do it. And then my lawyer says, go back to your hotel, get a good night's sleep, and I'll see you in the morning at 7:30. So, the pressure was unbelievable. But I was so sure that I was going to be able to do this. I was so confident. I slept like a baby. That means I peed in my pants. But no, I slept really well. I got up in the morning, took a shower, got dressed up, went to the lawyer's office, went through it one more time. We go to the courtroom. I'm sitting outside the courtroom for like 2 hours waiting. Finally, they call me in. I walk in. I see this is a fairly small room. And one speaker was kind of tucked behind the defense table where you could hardly see it. I had no idea how the system was going to sound. I get up, I get sworn in, and I go give my credentials. I supervised the soundtrack for Tron. I wrote an animated film. I produced thousands of commercials. Blah blah blah. Get through all of that. He goes, Mr. Fremer, in your job, you use certain terminology to describe what it is that you're telling people that they're going to hear. Explain some of those terms. So I go through imaging, soundstage width, soundstage height, soundstage depth, timbral accuracy, what makes an instrument sound like an instrument, what makes a guitar sound like a guitar, or a clarinet sound like a clarinet, a saxophone sound like a saxophone. I talk about dynamic range, dynamic contrasts, attack, sustain, decay. And I look at the jury. I say, like, attack is when a stick hits a cymbal, there's a tsh, and then there's a sustain as it just floats off, and then there's a decay as it decays into space. And I explain all these terms. And as I'm explaining this stuff to them, I could see it was registering with them. And I was explaining it. I was much more slowly spoken than I am right now because I want to get this over before you have dinner. And I could see all these terms were registering with them. And then I said, now I'm going to break down the first 2 minutes of the song Bad for you. So in the first 2 minutes of Bad, it starts with a flourish. Bum, bum, bum. And each note is louder than the first one. And that is a flourish to announce that Michael Jackson is back. And I look at them and Michael Jackson is back. I could see they like that. I said, and then there's going to be this very famous bass note that, boom, 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 boom. And as I'm doing this, when I'm doing this, my brain is connected to my mouth. It's like a direct connection. I'm fumfering more now. I was like locked in on that witness stand. I was 100% locked in. And I said to them, you're going to hear that very famous bass note. Boom, 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 boom. Each note has a life. Each note has an attack, a sustain, a decay, and there's a tune. And that note is not going to appear in that speaker. It's going to appear in front of the speaker in 3 dimensions. Did I know that was going to happen? No, I didn't know it was going to happen because I hadn't heard this system. You've heard a bad stereo system at a hi-fi show. It can be really bad. I had no idea what was going to happen. I said, you're going to hear that note. And then when the note is over, there's going to be this little sound. It's a synthesized sound, but it still has an attack, a sustain, a decay, and its own texture and life. And that's going to appear in front of the speaker. And then you're going to hear this little helicopter. It's going to go pip, 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 back and forth between the speakers. Now, maybe you never heard that before, but it's there. You may have heard that song a million times, but you may never have heard that, but it is there. And it's there because Quincy Jones wanted it there. And Bruce Swedien, the engineer, wanted it there. And Michael Jackson wanted it there. It's part of the element of this mix. And it's going to appear in 3 dimensions right in front of the speakers. And then Michael is going to start to sing. And when Michael sings, he's going to be in front of the speaker. He's not going to be attached to that speaker. He's going to be appearing in 3-dimensional space in front of the speaker. And as I remember telling this, now I may be embellishing this a little bit because I haven't seen the transcript, but I remember saying the reason why Michael Jackson is going to appear in 3 dimensions in front of you is because Bruce Swedien, the engineer, recorded all the stems as stereo Bloomline pairs. I think I told them what a Bloomline pair was in a way that they understood it. And I said, Michael's going to sing and he's going to move in front of the microphone and back, and you're going to hear him performing for you. And then the chorus is going to come in. It's going to be, I'm bad, I'm bad. And it's going to be layers of women on both sides of him, stacked in 3 dimensions. They're not going to be flat in space. They're going to be in 3 dimensions. You'll hear one in front of the other. Okay? That's what you're going to hear. And now, play it. And I had no idea what they were going to hear. So he pushes, the guy at the computer pushes the button, and those first 3 notes, bum, 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 come on so loud, but in completely locked in space. The defense woman, the woman that gave me the deposition a couple of months earlier, jumps out of her chair and looks around like she was being hit by something. And then it starts, and everything played out exactly the way I said it would play out. The system was rocking. It was loud, but no dynamic compression, no distortion. It was that Devialet amp, and those Sabrinas were like speaking as one. The whole thing, as I laid it out, played out, and I saw this jury was like, I could see it. And then it was over. And then I held up a graphic representation on an Audacity file showing them that the original bed had dynamics and that this reissue was a picket fence. It was completely squashed. I said, that's what you're going to hear now. That's the version you're going to hear now. Play it. And they played it. And it was so bad. That version was so bad that even in the courtroom, even under these conditions, it was like everybody was, and I could see the defense team was like, what happened? What happened to that recording? It sucks. That's what happened to it. They ruined it. They completely destroyed it. And you could see that the jury they could hear this difference. And then it was over. And then I gave the rest of my testimony, and then I was dismissed from the jury stand. And I get down, and my lawyer goes, and I walk past the psychologist, and he goes, and then I walk out. And I'm standing out there, and I knew I knocked it out of the park. I knocked it out of the park. And then my lawyer comes out and he goes, that was great. So go back to your room, have lunch, have a drink, sit at the pool. Court's out at 3 o'clock. I'll call you up, but that was great. So I walk out, I go back, I do all of that. I swim, I take a shower. I'm sitting at 3 o'clock. He calls me up. He says, okay, let me tell you what happened. Don't get upset. Wait till I finish. I go, what? What happened? He goes, okay, so after you got off the stand, the defense obviously were kind of freaked out by what you did, because what you did was pretty good. And they huddled and they called for a meeting in the judge's chambers with all of us. So we all go in there and they said, okay, we'll concede all the points that expert witness was brought in. I wasn't the only expert witness on the case. We will concede everything that expert witness was brought in to say. We'll concede all those points of litigation, so you don't have to litigate it, in exchange for all of his testimony and everything he did being totally expunged from the record. So, what? He said, no, it's all good. It really is all good, because we got everything that you were brought in to do. We got it. We don't have to litigate any of that. And all we had to do was say it's all expunged from the record. But believe me, the jury saw what you did. They heard what you said. They heard that music. They won't forget that. They've never heard anything like that, both verbally and orally. They've never heard anything like that. It's like saying, there's a giant elephant in the room. Don't think about the elephant. So it's all good. I said, okay, if you say so. But the next day in the Hollywood Reporter, it said, and yes, expert witness Michael Fremer from AnalogPlanet was brought in to testify, and he turned the courtroom into jukebox jury. And at the end of the day, his testimony was completely expunged from the record. But they didn't say for why it was expunged from the record. But anyway, so that's what happened. That was the story. And I hope you enjoyed it, because I'll tell you, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And it all came out great. And I got well paid for it too. So I hope you enjoyed that.